Okay, we'll continue from where we left off. We're Siman Taaruvot, and we're going over the various categories of Sfeka, the details of when we allow for Sfeka, when we don't allow for Sfeka. After all, what we're trying to achieve is leniency. Leniency in a situation where there's a chashash of an Isser, but because of the multiple Sfekas, we may allow it. That's the strength of Sfeka. As I'll explain again, some say it is similar to Rov, some say it's a Halacha b'fnei atzmoi, it has a koach of its own in minimizing the chances that there's an issue. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit later. So we're going through various kinds of examples where there can be Sfekas, but either the suffix is an Isur Vadai, and therefore you're only left with one suffix. Right? When something is an Isur Vadai, the Chachamim consider it an Isur Vadai, so it's not a suffix. Or simply that there's some condition that weakens the Sfeka. So last time we spoke about, I think it was 2 or 3 additional concepts. One was Sfeka, that they needed to be not Mishem Echad. Right? If it was Mishem Echad, then it's all one of the same. It's not 2. And then we went on to, even though there are exceptions to that, we said that when a Sfeka, even if it's Meshem Echad, the second one or the first one is more matir than the other one. When the two are somewhat different, nevertheless, in some ways are different, they may be allowed. And we gave the various examples of what constitutes or what may be a constituting a suffix Sfeka Meshem Echad. But we won't go back into that right now. What I want to do instead is focus a little bit more on Sfeka She Mishapech or She'eno Mishapech, which is where we left off, and there was a little bit of a need, I think, of more clarity. And the examples that I gave, I'm going to present it again, and some additional examples maybe, so that we can understand how it works or how it doesn't work. By Sfeka that it has to be Mishapech, what we're saying, what we're implying, is that they can easily be viewed or argued no matter with which suffix you begin. Okay? You have 2, and they can easily be applied or argued regardless of with which suffix you begin. Now, when we say Sfeka, we're obviously saying that there is a potential for an Isser. We cannot say we have 2 Sfekas to be matir. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, even if you say that there's a possibility for an Isser, I can remove that problem with an additional suffix that will neutralize it. So when applying a Sfeka Shemishapech, you have to have the possibility that you're saying that something is Asr. But nonetheless, I'll tell you why it's not Asr. Okay? We're not going to attack a situation I have multiple Sfekas that are Heterim. Then it's the same thing. What a Sfeka is that even if you start off saying something is Asr, or possibly Asr, a problem, I can tell you why it may not be such a big problem. Like the example we gave with Pesach Basuach, right? We say, it could have been that it happened to her when she was already married or engaged. Oh, that's a big problem, if it did. But even if it did, maybe it was be'oines, it was against her will. Remember that? It wasn't merotzen, oy vavoy, if a woman gladly, voluntarily agrees. That presents a big promise. Okay? So over there, you could say it the other way around too. Okay? So let's use that as an example. Maybe it was me'oines and merotzen. Even if you will say it was merotzen, who says she was married when it happened? So we were able to resolve the situation as a Sfeka. Very good. Okay? But when it's not Mishapech, in other words, when you cannot say it, when it won't work, when it's not logical, right, then obviously it won't qualify as a Sfeka. So let's go back to the example where we left off with a sakin, a very important kasha that can come up in Hilchos Shchita. Shecht, and you see a pegima, a nick in the knife, in the chalaf. Well, that's a problem. When did it happen? The more you check, the better, because it could happen, after there's wear and tear. And it does happen easily. It can happen, I should say, easily, in the hide, before you get to the simanim, or as you're cutting through the simanim. They're tough simanim. Okay? But there's also a possibility that it happened when he cut too far. He hit the mafrekes. He didn't chop it off, otherwise he'd be in trouble. But he hit the mafrekes, the neck bone. And that's a very hard bone. It's not like the veshet or the kone, which is softer. That could easily make a neck in a very delicate knife. Okay, so we have a Sfeka of sorts. What is a Sfeka? Safek, it was in the mafrekes. It could have happened in the mafrekes. And even if you want to tell me it happened during the time that he was shechting Simonim, it could be that it wasn't at the beginning of the shechita of the Simonim, it was at the end of the shechita of the Simonim, the miut Basar as we called it. And if it's at the miut Basar, at the end of the Simonim, it would be okay. What's the problem with this Sfeka? It's not mishapech. Why? Because if you start the other way around, Safek, it happened in the Simonim. I'm changing the language now, the terminology. Safek, it happened in the Simonim. And when would that be a problem if it happened in the Simonim? If it happened in the beginning. But that's okay, because even if it happened in the beginning, maybe it happened in mafrekes. And you can't do that. No. You can't be that. So you see, so you have to present the possibility of an isser, of a problem, with a suffix.
Right, but
in the other way around, with a second suffix, I didn't present it with a problem. What I did was I presented the good thing, the good possibility. Okay, I started off with mafrekes. Maybe it hit the mafrekes, and even if you want to tell me it didn't hit the mafrekes, but it hit the simonim, which would be a problem. It would be a problem if it did. It could also be that when it hit the simonim, it hit the simonim at the end.
In which case it's not a problem.
In which case it's not a problem. But now let me start again with the simonim. If I start with the simonim, maybe I hit the simonim. So what's the problem? The problem is, if I hit the simonim, it's no. I'm trying to pose a problem. What's the problem?
That's the next step. First, the positive.
No. I know. Here I have to have a problem.
That's the second step.
The second step is not a problem. The second step is mafrekes, where I have to have a problem.
You started with the mafrekes. It was the mafrekes. It's not a problem. And if you tell me that it wasn't the mafrekes, but simanim, that was the second step.
Maybe at the simanim, maybe where the problem is. So maybe it was at the end.
Right.
Okay, now let's start with the problem.
Right. So maybe it was.
Maybe it was the simanim.
Maybe it wasn't the. Well, you don't. You start with the problem.
Sure, I can.
But the mafrekes, you didn't problem.
Right. I didn't. I could start either way. You understand? I'm looking at the Sfekas. It has to be mishapech. That's what I'm trying to clarify, so it shouldn't be the way we. The first time around, maybe it wasn't so clear.
Okay.
What I'm adding right now is that you have to present a problem in every case.
Right.
Okay. The starting off with a mafrekes is not starting off with a problem. That's fine, because similar to Pesach Pasuach, what you're saying is, you know what? It could have been be'oines. Okay? No problem. And even if you want to say it was beratzon, who says she was married? Okay? So starting off with the heter. Maybe it was the mafrekes, and even if you want to tell me it's in the problem area, in the simonim, where the problem exists, it could have been after he finished the shechita, just after he finished. Wasn't therefore I don't have a problem. But if by starting off with the simonim, I can't do it exactly the same way as with the mafrekes, because I have to present the problem. That's what the problem is. The problem is not in the mafrekes. The problem can be potentially in the simonim. So what is the problem? Safek, if it was in the simonim, then it became pogum. Oh, it's a problem if it did in the beginning of the simonim. In the end of the simonim, it's not a problem. I'm trying to create a problem. Safek, it was in the simonim. And even if you want to tell me that it was in the simonim, right?
You said simonim.
Right. In other words, it doesn't work. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't say.
The way it doesn't work is, you're telling me it was in the simonim.
Right.
So maybe it was in
Basra. No.
And even if you tell me it's not in the...
No. I'm trying to present the problem. Again, maybe it was in simonim, as he was cutting.
Yes.
And if it was...
So that's already...
It's also...
What's the suffix?
Exactly. You cannot be mesapechet to arrive at a leniency of the problem.
Look.
Right.
Look, when you take the rape or the...
right.
Petah,
yeah.
Patloch,
right.
Matzati, right?
Right. Sure.
So there, the first time around, you say, maybe it was when she was not... So now you have, wait.
Right.
This is the first.
Right.
Because you can still
do it either way by Pesach Pasur, by the way.
Right.
Either way, you can start.
You can still do what you're doing.
Right.
But you're already starting out with no suffix. So if you're starting out with no suffix, you're never going to arrive at a suffix. By the Petach Patuach, we had actually two wonderful examples. One was Petach Patuach Matzati. Maybe it was before Sharit.
Right.
And the other one, maybe it was against her.
Right.
And compare that with maybe it was against her will, and maybe her chassan is not an expert.
No, but forget about the second example of expert.
Because that is also one that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Right.
That doesn't work. So
Right.
let's not use it right now. Right. We want to use one that we want to use an example that works, so we can see why this one doesn't work. Okay.
Well,
all right. Yeah. No. So I'm using the case.
It's about the pattern. It's
Right.
not about the example. The example is only there to illustrate pattern.
All right. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter which
Right.
example you take.
Let's say that. Okay, that's true. It doesn't make a difference, but
So the pattern of the argument is
right.
always maybe there's no problem here. And even if you say that there is a problem, if I consider the problematic case,
Right.
maybe that one isn't a problem either.
Right.
That's the structure you want.
More or less.
That's
Yes.
how
Yes.
this-
Depending how you start.
Well, you have to start with there is no problem, because if you start with of course there is a problem
No,
here,
there's-
then there's
there's
never going to be a Sfeka.
There's a possibility of a problem. Okay. By the mafreka, when in the case of the mafrekas, it's easier.
Before we go into this
Right.
particular example,
All right.
what I thought
Sure.
would be very helpful is to get
Yeah.
because at
Sure.
the example we're already at each other's throat.
Right.
So let's step aside, and
Okay.
that's very, very dangerous when we're talking about knives.
Okay,
So
okay.
let's step
Yeah.
aside and let's look
Yeah.
at the pattern first, and then see how it applies.
Okay.
I'm certainly
Yeah. No, but
very open to seeing it
but you have to
succeed.
understand. Okay,
Yeah.
but don't get confused too much with the patterns here, because what we're trying to do in every Sfeka is introduce the possibility of an is. Okay, you have to have that. You cannot say Suffolk. It was at the end of the Simanim. Okay, and Suffolk Mafrekas. You don't have a Sfeka here. They're both mutter. They're both mutter.
We never have.
Okay.
We never lit at the mutter side. We say maybe it was at the sof of the simanim.
Right.
And even if you tell me it wasn't at the sof of the simanim, now I have a problem, because
Yeah.
maybe it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
On that I can say, or maybe it wasn't in the beginning, but in the mafrekas.
Yeah, but you can't
It
start like
depends
that.
when.
Yeah.
Why can't you start?
You have
with
to
that?
start with. You have to. When you're starting with the simonim.
I have a
Yeah.
nick in the knife.
Yeah, but when
that's my problem.
No, yeah, but when you're starting with the simonim, you have to tell me what the problem is.
So the problem is not the simanim. The problem is the nick in the knife.
No, I understand that, but when you're starting, if it happened by the simonim where the problem area is, and it happened at the beginning.
Yes.
If it happened, I'm presenting a problem. When I started with the mafrekes, I wasn't presenting the problem.
Why not?
Because it's not so much of a problem, the mafrekes. I want to introduce the problem after the fact. I want to be machmer. And even if you tell me it's not the mafrekes, it's by the simonim,
So why don't
great.
you try?
Here.
So why don't
I
you
can't
try,
do that here.
Why don't you try to apply the same one?
I can't.
No, but your reason, what
Yeah.
you're demonstrating is you can't because you're outlawing it.
Yeah,
You're
that's
saying you
yeah.
can't because you're not allowed to start.
I have to present the isser.
Can't because
The isser is the nick in the
two
knife.
exonerating
No.
circumstances
Yeah.
are they can be substituted one.
I have a
one
problem. It
is
could have
the-
happened by the simonim. So what? If it happened by the beginning of the simonim, if it happened by the simonim where the problem is, what's the problem? So what's the problem that it happened by the simonim? What's the problem? Because if it happened in the beginning, right, it's a problem. Then I cannot introduce another suffix, because once I say it happened there where it's not supposed to happen, where it's a problem that happens, I cannot build my suffix, but then maybe something else.
If you
In
say
other words,
I
it
can't
the
say-
same
yeah.
If you
topic
say-
Right.
expressed in a different
Yeah.
terms. It's
That's not it.
Right. Right.
That's
Right. Right.
That's actually
Right.
has nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. The point is, if you start off with the beginning, you don't even have a first suffix.
Right, exactly.
So any vadai case of isser is not a Sfeka because it's not even a suffix. But,
That's
that's not what we're
that's
saying.
what
We're saying
mishapech
mechapes.
is.
We're saying mechapes. We're not saying
Yeah.
if you have a vadai isser, then there's never going to be a Sfeka
Yeah.
case.
Mishapech has to be both ways. That you should be able to
Yes.
start
But that doesn't
with
mean that-
presenting the problem.
Yes.
With presenting the
But
problem.
not with the vadai isser.
Well, that's what we're saying. Because it's a vadai, so you can't.
If you start with a vadai, it's not a question of Sfeka.
Right.
There's not even a first
But
suffix.
look, but by the Pesach Pasuach, it's okay.
Okay, so let's
Why does it work over there? It doesn't work over here.
Do you start
Think
with the
about
vadai
it.
Isser over there with the second time
No,
around?
over there, however you look at it, however you look at the problems,
Yes.
there are always a problems. Beratzon is a problem.
But you never start with the vadai Isser.
And marriage is a problem. Of
But you
course
don't
not.
start with the vadai
Yeah, but
Isser.
that's exactly what I'm saying. That whenever you don't have a mishapech
We're trying to-
entirely,
We're trying to figure out what that means.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Whenever you cannot
But that's tautological.
cycle it,
Yes.
whenever you cannot cycle it,
But-
right,
but-
and start off with the problem on either end, then it won't be a real Sfeka.
But where the cycling is,
You're trying
where
to
the
say,
cycling fails
yeah,
has to be on the second suffix, not on the first one.
it makes no difference. You
Well,
can-
if
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
suffix, if there is no suffix on the first one, then this isn't failing because you can't be mehapech. This is because you're starting off with a vadai isser. It's not a question of being able to revert the argument.
If you
You're
start-
starting off with a vadai isser.
you can't start with me at Basra and then go to Mafrekas. Me at Basra and Mafrekas are the same thing.
So then
you're saying
it
it happened-
also the same thing.
No.
Why, if it's one is the same thing as the other, then the other is the same thing
No,
as the
no,
one?
no,
If
but-
they're identical both ways.
Not exactly, no. Because we started off saying by Mafrekas, if you're saying it's not the Mafrekas, but it happened at the Simonim. Okay? If it happened by the Simonim where it could be a problem, it can be a problem. Maybe it did not exactly happen in the beginning, it happened later on.
Look, first of all,
I can make that claim.
this can
Yeah.
only be resolved by
Right.
a duel.
Yeah.
And secondly, I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
the rest of the people are
Yeah.
by now thoroughly
Yeah.
bored. So
No.
we should-
Yeah. No, but
I'll just let you explain it,
Yeah.
so that everyone
Right.
has it clear.
the main thing to
We'll have to
remember.
talk about it
Yeah, no.
tomorrow.
It's very simple. The main thing to remember, it's not so complicated. The main thing to remember is that it has to be able to be looked at in every way possible. Wherever you put the suffix, I should be able to build another suffix that will cancel out the suffix. That's it.
Which
okay?
means that you have
Either way.
I have a suffix.
Right.
And then you have to,
No.
and then the cancellation fails. Then
Right.
you don't have a Sfeka.
Right. So I have a suffix here if it was in the Simonim. That's a suffix. I don't know for sure. And if it was in fact at the Simonim where it's a problem, I can't go weiter, I can't go on. No additional suffix will help me here. If it's true that it was at the Simonim, no additional suffix that I can build in this case will help me. But if I start with a suffix from the other end, it appears. It appears. It's not. I agree with you. In the end, it doesn't work. But I'm just showing you a Sfeka that I'm attempting to use. On the one hand, it appears to work. But when I start off and try to make that argument, right? We're scientists here, right? We're trying to figure out, we're trying to see if we can replicate the right in the laboratory. I can't replicate it on the other end. If I start off with the suffix, is it the Simonim or not? And even if you say it is, well, I have another suffix, but that other suffix won't help you because that first suffix, it's not a suffix anymore. It's a vadai isser. That's exactly it. So that's why Sfeka she'eino mishapech is not a Sfeka. It's really one suffix. That's all. That's all we're trying to say. In other words, however, you have to be able to tackle both, and that's what Pesach Basuch is a classic example of how every way you look at it, the two Sfekas are fine. They get along. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. They're not the same. Of course they're not the same. That's why this doesn't work here, and over there it does work. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, I understand about the patterns. Yeah, but that's what are we trying to show? We're trying to show that this is not a good Sfeka. You can't attack it with more than one suffix. You can't go beyond that one suffix, unless, of course, you start with the mafrekis, but that's not good enough. I have to be able to do it the other way around. I'm supplying you with a suffix. Now build it. I can't. And you're telling me, oh, it's not fair. You start. It doesn't make a difference.
The bottom line.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
I'll stay
Yeah.
away now from the whole
Right,
argument.
right.
The is not good.
Sure.
The bottom line. When I look at the knife,
Right,
and I see that it has,
right.
I don't know whether it came from the mafrekis or whether the name came from.
There's a lot of places.
Basra.
A lot of places
But
it could come
yeah,
from.
No.
Yeah.
There's some that are legal, some are
Right.
illegal.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it came from the mafrekis, the miut Basra,
Yeah.
or the beginning of them.
Right.
If it came from the beginning of Simanim, then it was us.
Right.
If it came from the Miyut Basra, it would be mutter.
Can you therefore now make me a
excuse me,
Yeah.
if it came from the Mafrekis, it would be mutter.
Right.
So the bottom line is I have two situations where it would, whether it came from the Mafrekis, which is one organ,
Right.
or from the Miyut Basra, which is a whole different organ.
Right.
In either case, of there.
Right.
And if it came from the Simanim, then it would be us.
By the way, the Miyut Basra
Yes.
and the Mafrekas are equal. Makes no difference if it's
They
a
have the
Miyut
same
Basra.
organ.
No.
They're two different reasons
Even if
why it
they're,
has a name.
but it's still considered the same thing. It's kosher because it was after the shchitas hasimon.
Yeah, that's the end.
It's not-
It
makes,
was after it
they're
comes
both
to the
they're the same. Makes no difference. They're not two independent kinds of sfekas. Okay? And therefore, I can't build my case here if I start off with a problem.
If so, then the Mafrekas case should. If the Mius Basra is the same suffix as the Mafrekas, how can I say if it's not the Mafrekas, it's a Mius Basra? This way it does work. Then it doesn't work either because they're identical.
You're right.
So then neither of the two species.
Well, but the other one is stronger. It's stronger because I'm trying to build a case.
So, but wait a second. So
Yeah.
then the Mafrekas doesn't work either as a Sfeka.
It does, but it doesn't.
If it's identical, it
but
doesn't.
it's not exactly identical. It is and it's not.
So why
Because
the
of-
Mafrekas it's not, but the Mius Basra
Only
is.
because when we
That's,
start because when we
say
start,
it the other way around.
you're right, but because I started with Mafrekas, and here comes along something which is different. If I start with Simanim, I have to start with the potential is. Okay, I'm starting with the potential Isser. How am I going to get to an Isser possibility? Okay, how am I going to present a potential Isser? If it hit the Simanim and as it was shechting, otherwise I'm not getting into a potential Isser.
But we're throwing it now.
We're not. We have.
Let's
Yeah,
keep going, let's keep
you
going.
understand?
Everyone else understood it. I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
All right. You
That's
have
the point, isn't it?
right. You have to have a potential Isser. That's all. Somewhere in the Sfekas, you have to. When we started with Mafrekas, we say even if it wasn't Mafrekas and it was in the potential Isser area, it still may not be Usser. Right? Now let's do it the other way around. The potential Isser, I hit the Simanim as I was cutting it. We can't go on. That's the potential Isser. I have to present it somewhere. If I'm not going to present it, I'm going to say it's in the Miyut Basra or it's in the Mafrekas. I didn't present the potential Isser problem. They're both
In
heteric.
other words, because they're relevant between
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. Right.
No,
All right.
actually, what you just said, the last thing that you just said.
Yeah. Okay.
The last thing that you just said. No.
Yeah,
the
maybe.
Last thing,
Said
the
it
last thing
differently,
that you just said was,
Right.
if I start, let's take it.
Yeah.
If I start off with the Mafrekas, and I say, even if you tell me it was not the Mafrek, what is my choice? Simanim.
Right.
There is no other place to be.
Right.
But even if you say the Simanim, maybe it was the Mius Basra.
Right.
Now, if I start off with the Mius
Simanim.
Basra, I start off with the Mius Basra,
Right.
like the Mafrekas. I
Yeah.
start off with the Mius, and now I say, and now if it wasn't the Mius Basra, now I need to have an Isser on which I'll say a Sfeka. So what is going to be the Isser that follows that follows after Mius Basra? Which Isser would it be? It would have to be Simanim. And if I say, and the Mafrekas is not a suffix on the Simanim, because the Mafrekas is not part of the Simanim. The Mafrekas is not a suffix on the Simanim. Once I've said the Simanim, I can no longer fall back on the Mafrekas, because the Mafrekas is not a suffix on the Simanim, right? Or is the Mafrekas a suffix on the Simanim?
No, it's not a suffix in the Simanim.
But if you start off with the Mafrekas and you say, if it wasn't the Mafrekas, it would have been the Simanim.
Right.
And then you can say, but maybe in the Simanim it was the Mius Basra, because the Mius Basra still belongs to that part that is called Simanim.
That's another way of looking at
it's,
it.
It's an area, but that's how you said it the last time around. That's how you said it.
Somewhat, yeah.
And that introduces a whole different question. The question is, the Mafrekas doesn't allow me escape from the Isser of the Simanim once I have excluded the Mius Basra. Whereas the Mius Basra allows me to escape from the Isser of the Simanim even after I've excluded the Mafrekas. So if I say the Mafrekas, it wasn't the Mafrekas. So I have an Isser because it's the Simanim. I can say maybe it was the Mius Basra. So it allows me to escape this Isser.
Yeah.
But if I started with the Mius Basra, and I say, even if it wasn't the Mius Basra, now I have to come to the Isser. It was the rest of the Simanim. The Mafrekas doesn't allow me escape from that. That's what you're saying.
Somewhat, you could say that. To start off with a Miyut Basra, remember, it's like starting off with the Mafrekas. Okay? That's where the little bit of the...
Only you're starting off with the Mafrekas and starting off with the Miyut Basra, and then it doesn't work either way.
Yeah, but it appears much more of a Sfeka when you start with the Mafrekas.
That would be an optical illusion. But I don't think that's the argument.
No, that's not the argument.
Because you said it appears.
It appears to work because you're trying to weaken. In the beginning, with Mafrekas, you're weakening the suffix. You're saying, start up, no, it might be the Simonim and it's a problem. Don't worry about it. It could have been at the end. And the other way around.
That's the point.
Right. The other way around, I'm beginning with the strict, not with the lenient. No leniencies. I'm beginning with another angle of attack. I'm beginning with a problem. I have a problem here.
Why are you beginning?
Because I want to. I have to. I have to try. The Shach tells me to. You have to try it. Will it work?
Yeah, but you have to exchange the two Sfekas and see if you start off with the second suffix as the first one, will you still arrive at a Sfeka?
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact example.
There's nothing wrong with it being the example.
Yeah,
but I'm saying that this case should not.
It has to be.
But it is the same.
You have to be able to look at it both ways.
Exactly.
That's all.
Starting with either suffix. And if the second case where you're starting with the other suffix is going to be a different case, you didn't prove that it can't be mechaper.
Yeah.
You said if I take a different case, it's not going to work. Okay?
Yeah, but the case of I have to have an Isser possibility. That's why I will
That's exactly my point.
Yeah, I have to have it somewhere.
Quoting you on the second time around, that's exactly my point. And, maybe that if you start with the Mius Basra,
I won't have an Isser.
The next step has to be the Isser, which is the Siman.
And leave out the Mafrekas.
And the Mafrekas is not a suffix on the Siman.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
That's what you said.
Yeah. Okay, the good news was that somebody was mater Sfeka Sheina Misapech, right? That was the good news. That we talked about that.
Now, who was that?
Right? There are those who are mater Sfeka Sheina Misapech, and there are some who are mater only in the Doraisa.
What does it mean?
The end of the Simonim, because if you cut the roiv of the Simonim and you didn't cut it all, it's still kosher, the two of them. So therefore, any problem that's caused at the end of the Simonim are not a problem. Yeah.
No, after you've cut the
majority. So it's like you're hitting the mafrekas. It wouldn't make a difference. Yeah.
Well, the point I think is that there, even though you nicked the knife while cutting the Simanim, since you already cut the Simanim without a nicked knife.
Right.
And by that point in time, when you got to the Mias Basar, the animal was already a kosher shchita.
Yeah, that's right.
So now what happens at that point of the Simanim...
Makes no difference, irrelevant.
Does not reverse the fact that it's already a kosher animal to eat.
That's true. Anyway, there are those who are machmir b'sfek she'enim tzachaf v'chom if it's the rice, because sofik the rice is lechumra. And also legabesh sofik m'shem echad. There are those who are machmir if it's a sofik the rice, but there are bonon there michael behefsed meru. So we do, even though these are very strict, and Shach was saying that you can't do m'shem echad, it has to be misapek. There are exceptions. It's there are bonon behefsed meruba, and there are some who bichlal allow sofik she'enim. Okay, what's the svara now? Let's just before we go on to the next klalin. What's the svara of Sfeka? Why wouldn't Sfeka Sheina Misapech work? What's the problem? So that goes back to what we've covered in explaining Sfeka. It depends how you learn Sfeka. If you learn Sfeka, is because it's a din of roiv, the weight of roiv, the majority. You have two Sfekas. Then what you're saying here is, if it's Eina Mishapech, you don't have the chances, the greater chances that this is mutter. If you say Sfeka is midin roiv, what you're saying is the chances are greater, statistically, that this is mutter. But if it's not mishapech, then maybe it's not so strong, right? So the ones who are matir, the ones who are matir, Sfeka she'ena mishapech, they're going to claim, listen, even though they're not mishapech, nevertheless, the fact that you have a multitude of Sfekas here, it's medin roiv. Because of that, it's mutter, right? Because the whole idea of Sfeka anyway is medin roiv. So what if it's not mispach? So what if it's not misapech? The chances are greater here that it's mutter, because that's the whole idea of Sfeka, that it's roiv chances. All right, but those who say that those who want to answer obviously are going to look at it the other way, not really else roiv. They're going to say, my chazis. You know what the term my chazis is? My chazis is in the Gemara. Who told you that that your blood is redder than somebody else's blood? You know, if a guy tells you to shoot another Jew, you have to give your life. You can't kill him. Because the Gemara says, my chazis the damach sumak tfei. What did you see that your blood is redder than his blood? Who says you're better? You should be saved more than him. Okay? That's where the term my chazis is. So the shach, I think others use it over here. I forget who uses the term here. My chazis, that you should start with this suffix, start with this suffix. In other words, if the Sfeka is not mishapech, you have a problem. Who tells you to start with this suffix? Maybe start with this suffix, which is the chomer, the more chomer suffix. Right? So if it's not mishapech, the svara of not allowing it, according to those who learn it, that it's not min din roiv. It's not because of majority, because it's a special din. Sfeka is a special koyach. Right? But if it's not mishapech, I can tell you, who told you to start with this suffix that is lenient, right? Like by frekes, maybe start with this suffix, which is the suffix which is more chomer. My chazis, why start there? Start here. Who told you? That's why they won't allow a Sfeka she'eino misapech, because why are you starting off with this one? Start on this side, right? And you can't. You obviously can't, right? Maybe this also helps a little bit to understand that particular example. Whereas those who hold it's roiv, and they want to be mater, that is. You can hold roiv and not be mater either. But those who hold that it's roiv, or those who are mater, I should say, would hold, well, listen, it's a roiv. If it's roiv, chances are that this is more mutter than not.
Now, you remember that? I remember that you once mentioned you have a Sfeka is because after the first suffix, the first suffix causes whatever remains to be the Isur Rabbanan.
Right.
On the Isur Rabbanan, we say the Rabbanan, the Kula.
Yeah.
Is anything mentioned over there with respect to Mechapech?
I didn't see. I didn't read.
Reasoning was this.
Because
I can tell you one thing. What's mine?
No. The thing is that even if you say at the end it's like a suffix derabanan lekula, right? You could still argue that's if it's a real pure strong Sfeka. Otherwise, you don't really have that weight, that strength to make it a real Sfeka. In other words, it's two separate concepts. In other words, what's the koyach of Sfeka? Why do we matter it? Because it's something derabanan in the end. But that's if it's a Sfeka. Now we're trying to argue why wouldn't a Sfeka at she'eino misapech work or not work? In other words,
what one would need to show is that if we're mehapech, what does it mean mehapech? We're starting off with the second suffix first. So the second suffix, the suffix does not accomplish to turn it into a, and therefore we don't have a case of suffix derabanan lekula. Or the second suffix, we do have a rabbanan, but then we no longer have a suffix which will make it lekula.
Yeah, you can say that. Very good. Yeah, that fits in. All right, we have Klal 14 and 15 that even if it's Sfeka she'eino misapech, if there's no possibility of starting the suffix only from the first one, that's the only way you can start with the suffix. You can't be misapech because you cannot start unless you start from the first one. Because of sequence, right? Then it's allowable. And we gave the example with a keves, a sheep or a cow that had a claw on its back. Well, it could have gotten the claw. So we're here concerned. Did a lion enter or not? Or maybe she got the claw from rubbing against the wall, because that's where the claw was from before. So even though it's not mishapech over here, because you can't start off with the claw, right? Yes or not? Because one,
even if you say the lion did claw it, maybe it didn't come in.
You can't do that, right? So even though it's not mishapech, even if it's not mishapech, it can't work in any other way. You have to assume that our question has to first be, did the lion enter or not, to first determine where did that claw come from. Even if it did, maybe it didn't get it. Then maybe the lion lo daras, right? If the lion never entered, I don't have a problem to begin with. I have to first determine.
You don't have a claw.
Well, somehow, yeah. So it doesn't. I need the sequence of events here. I need to have the first suffix resolved. Did the lion enter or not? So we have to have that. Otherwise, we don't have the problem. So even if it's not mishapech, the Shach says it's perfectly fine. You also have this actually. In the other example that the Ramah brought, remember a shaila that actually happens occasionally, where you see the chicken's bone broken, and we have a suffix legabe dereya, we have a suffix legabe the lungs. By the way, you know about liver, duck liver? You know what the problem with duck liver is?
I didn't know.
Duck liver is very expensive. They say it's very tasty. What is the big balagan, as they say in Hebrew? Kashrus problem about duck liver. It's coming from a duck. The problem is, and unfortunately in Israel they do it, bitum avazim. They're mefatim. They force feed the ducks, and I just saw a video recently about it.
Like the geese.
Geese and ducks, both, and it's very cruel, very painful to them. Force feeding them, and the liver grows to about 10 times the real size, 7 to 10 times the size. It's very profitable, but it's tzar balechaim. Tzar balechaim, as you know, is deraisa. You cannot inflict pain on an animal.
But only with
what?
But also
well, obviously you're allowed to shecht it.
Well, not only shecht it, you're also allowed to use it because there's a tzodeh.
There's a tzodeh, yeah, obviously.
So why here to make
yeah, there's a question. The Chassam Sofer was asked a question, by the way. Can you go shooting ducks
as a
sport,
hunting,
as a sport, with those shotguns? You know, it's a sport. Is there any Isra in the Torah? Says there's no Isra Torah.
It's just pasnish.
It's just it doesn't pass for a Jew.
They had this on Rebbe. Rebbe used to go, what do you call it?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So anyway, yeah, we don't do these things. So
anyway, you just for pleasure.
So here, yeah, for pleasure. So with the ducks or the geese, it could cause problems in the veshet, in the kaneh. It could, internally, internal problems as a result of the force feeding, because sometimes that tube does go down deep and does cause problems. So they're not allowing it. You can't eat it. The liver is coming from a treif. Duck, perhaps, possibly. Besides the problem of tzar balachai.
So they can't check it? After they check the chicken, if it's straight or not? Maybe by a duck it's difficult
It could be more difficult to check, yeah. There's other problems, they just avoid it altogether. So anyway, so with that question, with the wing being broken, maybe it perforated the lung. It's a big kasha. So maybe the wing got broken after the shechita. He threw the chicken, the mass production, chicken, threw it on the pile. And it broke. How do you know it broke? You see black and blue. You see something there. Blood clot. So it's a question, when did it happen? Because if it happened before, it may perforate the lung. So what's the Sfeka? Right? Safek, it was broken before the shechita.
Right? It was broken after the shechita.
Safek, maybe it was after the shechita. And even if you say it's before the shechita, who says the lungs were perforated? And the Ramah, very interesting, says you don't have to be mevar. I think eventually the shop will talk about when you have to mevar. If you can mevar, does it make anything different? But the Ramah, in that particular case, says you don't have to bother. It's a bother, you don't have to bother. So that's a Sfeka, even though it's not mishapech. It's not a real mishapech, because you can't start off with, is the reya perforated or reya not perforated? And even if you say it is, maybe it was broken after shechita. After shechita, the reya, the breaking of the wing doesn't make a difference. I'm saying here it doesn't fit. It doesn't really make a difference here. You can't start it off with that suffix of nekuvas reya. You see how it doesn't. It's not mishapech in the same way that we had the other ones mishapech. The only way you can build your suffix in this one is if you start with the wing, because that's where the problem really is. It's not the problem in the reya. We don't know what the reya. We don't know. The problem is we have a broken wing. And the broken wing. Well, when did it happen? Did it happen after shechita? Well, even if it happened before, maybe there's no.
Let's really formulate it, and you see how amusing it is.
Yeah.
You start off with the reya. You start off like this. Maybe the wing didn't perforate the.
Yeah.
And even if you say the wing did perforate the reya, then maybe the wing broke. The wing broke before the shechita, after the shechita. Oh, you want to say after?
Yeah,
the
after the shechita.
So then it can perforate the lung.
Right.
Then it's not a problem.
You see, it doesn't make sense.
Because you don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem.
After the shechita,
I don't have a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you say that it did perforate the lung, implies that would be an issur.
Right.
But here you don't have it.
You don't have an issur, yeah.
In other words, it's not a means of escaping the perforation of the lung. It's a means of permitting the lung.
Yeah.
And that's not a Sfeka.
Yes, that's not a Sfeka. Nevertheless, we allow for it, because the only way you have a question, the sequence, the problem has to arise first from the
before the shechita.
Before the shechita. In other words, not before the. No, it has to rise from the wing. You have to begin with the question on the wing. Did the wing? When did the wing break? You cannot start with the tzafek, with the nekuvas, with the hole in the reya. You don't really have a shala on the reya. So you have a shala on the wing. So it's also one of those situations where you have to start with the first tzafek, and because of that, even though it's not really mishapech, because of the sequence of the necessity of beginning with that first suffix, I have to start with that, like with the lion, then it's okay, it's acceptable.
But I've noticed
Yeah.
something. There are really two very different categories of Sfekas that we deal with these examples. One Sfeka is,
Right.
I don't know the Isser actually, I don't know if the Metzias
Right.
actually
It's a different kind.
occurred.
You're right. You're right.
The other type of Sfeka is, I know that it's occurred, I just don't know that if the
There is-
circumstances are such that it would be Asr.
That you're right.
On the
You're right.
Petach Patuach.
Yeah.
I know the Petach Patuach is Patuach. I'm not talking about what
Right.
the husband doesn't know.
Right. Yeah.
But there might be other circumstances where the Petach Patuach is not an Isser.
You're right. Yeah.
But here I don't, by the lung, I don't even know if there is an
Listen, if all Sfekas were the same, we wouldn't have all these klalim. Obviously, there's different circumstances. Sure.
But it sounds very different.
They're very quite different. Yeah. And that's why it's here. It's not mesapech even. Nevertheless, he allows for it because of this. All right. Another example that the Shach brings down that we'll just go through it quickly because in order to understand it properly, I was thinking of bringing you a drawing of
Overhead projector. Oh.
we would have to learn a little bit the anatomy of an animal, of the animal or the chicken. I may do that eventually.
PowerPoints.
Yeah. It involves, I don't know if you've ever heard of Tzomes Hagidim and Arkuva. The chicken and the human and the animal have several Arkuvot, several knees. Now, they're not really knees because there's only one knee.
Joints.
But they're really called joints. But in Hebrew, in the Lashon HaMishnah, it's called Arkuva. So you have a Karkuva Ha'elyona, Karkuva Tachtona. So there's a problem if, in a chicken or in the animal, it's in Hilchos Treifos. If there was a break in the higher Arkuva, right, and the flesh and the bones were sticking out with not enough skin or flesh covering it. If this happened before the animal died, it's treif. And in the chicken too, there's an area called the Tzomes Hagidim, in between the leg and the thigh, I guess in English. A little area, several like gidim, sinews, that if they're cut before, it's a problem, it's treif. Yeah, so sometimes they open up if there's a doubt about it. That's called Tzomes Hagidim. So anyway, in the case of the bone being broken above the arkuva, and we see that there's not enough flesh, not enough skin covering it, in other words, it's protruding, we have a question of whether it was while it was alive or whether it happened later on. We don't know when it happened. This would not be mutar mishum sfeka because it's also, you cannot be mehapechet. So what's sfeka? Sfeka is that it break before or after. And even if you want to say it broke before while it was alive, maybe it protruded afterwards. Maybe the reason why you're seeing the protrusion, it came about after the fact. This would also be an example where you can't be mehaper because you can't start off saying with the protrusion. You can't say, for example,
Maybe the protrusion came later, and if it came,
maybe
it never broke.
Yeah. If you want to say it went out, it did protruded, maybe it happened after shechita. After shechita doesn't make a difference, right? In other words, you cannot apply the exact same logic beginning with the other suffix, with the suffix of protrusion. It's not mishapech, and therefore it's not a real sfeka. Okay, it's just another example that the Shach brings down. All right, Klal Tes Zayin is very interesting. It's completely different. Klal Tes Zayin says that if you have a sfeka d'oraisa, legabi an iser, I should say it differently. If you have a sfeka, if you have legabi a potential iser, that may be a potential iser d'oraisa. Okay, it's not for sure. If you have legabi something which is a potentially asur min Torah. I'm sorry, the other way around. If you have a situation where the iser that you're dealing with is not asur min Torah, okay, it's not asur min Torah, it's only asur min Rabbanon. So you have a sfeka legabe, this one, but it's also midrabanan. Okay, it's permissible. Okay, what's the question over here? The question is, you're starting off with a sfeka, and this sfeka tells you it's not a problem. Okay, but even though it's not a problem, the chachamim asered it. The best way to see it is through the example that they give. Tzir dogim. In Hilchos Dogim, you find the halachas of kosher fish. How do you know what a kosher fish is? What happens if kosher fish was salted with non-kosher fish? What happens if there are no scales? All kinds of questions. So one of the questions that arises there is as follows. You have kosher fish that were salted with non-kosher fish. Nimlechu biyachad. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is that there's tzir of the dogim. The tzir is the brine that's coming from the dogim. So, what's the problem with brine? I'm not eating the fish. Brine is not asur midaraisa, it's only asur midarabanan. What is asur midaraisa, however, is brine that has shuman, brine that is fatty. Because brine that is fatty, coming from fatty fish, the brine, that fatty brine is like the basar of the fish itself. So that's the only one that would be asur d'oraisa. So in the potential isur d'oraisa here, I have a sfeka, which says it's mutter. Okay? What's the suffix? Suffix if they were salted or not. I don't know, maybe did the goy salt the non-kosher fish with the kosher fish? And even if he did, maybe there was no shuman here. Okay? So legabe the potential isur d'oraisa of shuman, I don't have a problem because I have a sfeka. So mina Torah, I have a sfeka that would allow me to eat this. But the Rabbanan said, hey, you can't. Even tzir is asur, midrabanan. So whenever I have a sfeka mina Torah that would allow me to eat something, but the midrabanan it's asur, and midrabanan I still have one suffix left. Was it salted with it, or was it not salted? I can go ahead and eat this. Why? Because Sfeka d'Rabbanan lekula. In other words, even though the Rabbanan said it's asur here, in other words, what do I gain here? The Sfeka only helps me with the Torah, but the Rabbanan say tzir is also asur. Right? So even though this would be asur midrabanan, since we say Sfeka d'Rabbanan lekula, this would be okay. Suffix if they were salted together or not.
I thought you were saying once there is such a suffix, it's asur d'Rabbanan.
Right. In this case, it would be mutter. Because what we're going to do in the next 5 minutes is we're going to see various kinds of sfekas d'Rabbanan, on how he distinguishes between them and which one he allows to be used in combination with sfekas. Here, on the one hand, you have a sfeka that allows it, but the midrabanan it's asur. The whole thing is asur. So you might say, well, it's asur. Yeah. But you still are left with one suffix d'Rabbanan. The suffix d'Rabbanan is lekula. Okay.
So the Rabbanan suffered the vadai case, not the suffix case.
Yes.
I misunderstood you. I thought it was asur to the suffix case.
One more time.
They could say, well, if you're not sure that it was salted together or not, then you're not allowed to eat. Then they would asur the suffix case.
Right, no, the Rabbanan don't asur the suffix
No,
case.
they asur the vadai.
They only asur vadai cases.
Okay.
That's bichlal, another klal in Sfekas the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan were never, with their xeris, were not on a suffix. If you have a suffix, if this is an isur the Rabbanan or not, it's mutter. Right? Suffix the Rabbanan, lekula. Right? But if it's a vadai, then of course it's the Rabbanan were machmir. That was the question over here. Here the Rabbanan were machmir on a deoraisa. So the deoraisa sfeka won't help me because they're machmir anyway and it's tzir. But you still have the one suffix left, and therefore it's okay.
You don't know if this is the tzir that was together.
Right. So but you understood that. In other words, even though it doesn't help me with the sfeka with the Rabbanan, because they asur the tzir, I still have one suffix left. Right.
Maybe if this is the tzir that they asur.
Right. No, if in fact it were salted at all. Yeah.
Right, and that would be exactly this is the question. If this is the tzir.
We have two klalim, Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, 17 and 18, which are very interesting, and they're very easy to understand and follow, and we'll just go through them briefly. The Shach in Yud Zayin and Yud Ches presents 3 kinds of the Rabbanans. One is an Isur Rabbanan that they made a takana in order so that we, Chas v'Shalom, should not be nichshel in Isur the right. That is why they say this is asur. What is an example of an Isur Rabbanan? Because we may come onto an Isur Raisa, an egg of an avela. An egg from a nevela, right? Not a treifa. Don't eat the egg from an avela because eventually you may come to eat the egg of a treifa, which is also in the Torah. So therefore we say an egg from an avela is also in the Torah. So in other words, an egg from an avela is not also in the Torah. only an egg from a trefa. So they came along and said, an egg from a nevela is also in Rabbanon because you may come to be nifshal in an Isur D'Oraisa.
What is the the egg was laid, chicken died?
We have an egg of
died?
a nevela that is mixed.
So the hen died before the egg was laid. When you say an egg of a nevela, in other words, the hen died, we opened up the hen and there is a completed egg.
Egg
it's not that I have an egg in the nest and then the hen
No.
That's
not
how
we have a
nevela at this point.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
It's not an egg.
Anyway, right, so this, they answered, because maybe you'll come to eat the Basar of a trefa, which is also in the Torah. Another example is Bishulei Akum, Bishul Akum. Why did they not allow me to eat from that which a goy cooked, certain food? Because of chasnas. They were goys that you should not come to intermarry with them. Now, even though this beitza is not bottle because it's a davar shebeminyan, right? It would not be bottle beroiv at least. Right. Whenever I have a suffix ligaba, in other words, if she's from an avela or not, she's muteris, because suffix derabbanan, and a suffix derabbanan we're not goyzer. Right? If I have a suffix at all, if she is from a nevela. So this kind of a suffix can be mitzarefet to a sfeka. Even though the Rabbanon said that this is asur, this kind of isur is because we may come to an isur d'oraisa, but in reality, this chayfetz is not really asur. It's just that the gzera was maybe you'll be nichshol in an Isur D'Oraisa. This kind of a Isur D'Rabbanon is an easy Isur D'Rabbanon that you can be mitzarefet to Sfeka if you ever have it.
So you can?
You can. It's an easy form of Isur D'Rabbanon. Another one, Isur D'Rabbanon that the Chachamim were mesaken because there's actually a chash Isur Begufoy in the actual thing. Typical example is cheese. One typical suffix by cheese that was made by goyim is maybe they actually use the rennet from the hide of the nevela to be ma'amid the gvina to form the cheese. Even though the ma'aser is not usually a chash Torah because most people don't use the ore, they use the keva, the stomach inside, which is pirsho be'alma, which is just like dirt and has no tam to it, even nothing. Nevertheless, we're machmir, of course. The Chachamim were very machmir in cheeses. And the Isser V'Heter and the Shach both say over here that this is much more chamer than the other D'Rabbanan that we just spoke about. And here we don't say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula. You follow me? This is like an Isser Vadai, when there is a chash. Maybe this came from a non-kosher source. They treated this as an Isser Vada. Oh, if you treat something like an Isser Vada, then you can't be mitzaref into Sfeka. All you have is one suffix. You follow me why you have one suffix? If they treat this as Isser Vada, then it's not a suffix. Even though to us it's a suffix, how did they make this cheese? But when the Chacham said, anytime you have a suffix legabe cheese, it's asur. And when they said it's asur, they meant asur vada, the Shach and the Isser Beheter said. Because they were choishish, maybe it came from a real Isser. It's not like the first D'Rabbanan. You may come to intermarry. That's a gzera. Here, they made it an Isser Vada. When you make something an Isser Vada, you cannot be mitzarefet with Sfeka. You were going to ask something. Yeah? Of course. You follow? So this particular example, the Shach and Isser B'Tzesem, would be more chamer than the one we just quoted before. The Pri Chodesh disagrees. Pri Chodesh says, cheese. What's the big problem with cheese? Swiss cheese, American cheese. Anyway, he says cheese is much more lenient. Says there's no real isur min Torah. The isur of cheese does not have an ikar min Torah. You know what an ikar? It has no foundation from the Torah. What did they make it from? Think about it. You don't have trephus inside, really, right? It's a whole thing. Is that the Rabbanan? It's for other reasons that they made this like a real isur, but it's not. There's no real ikar min Torah. The Prach says for cheese. Pure the Rabbanan Chachamim were misaken this. So he says, he says you can be lenient with it. Oh yeah, everybody holds on to Beya. And the Beya, it's only Xera, you may come. Remember, there's not even a chash of an Isser here. You may come. Here, it's a big chashash that you may come into the real thing. But even that, the Pichadar says, it's the whole Isser of cheese, the way it's made, and minatora, it's not a problem. It's purely midrabanan, he wants to say. Not the people going pre-chodesh. Yeah, the pre-chodesh says it's even easier, this one than the other one. He wants to say that this... Well, obviously you can't have it, you can't eat it, but as being a suffix, this is not an isur vadai. He says, why should it be? Cheese is not a problem. The ikr of the isur is not min Torah. It's not taken from the Torah. And then the third example is Basar shenisalam min ha'ayin. In this one also, the Shach says it would be an easy isur d'Rabbanan, the gabe the suffix. Remember Basar shenisalam min ha'ayin, we discussed it briefly. Meat that disappeared, and we had it here, it's no longer here, then we find it again. We're not sure if it's the same meat. Maybe it was replaced by non-kosher meat. Maybe an animal, a bird, or maybe the goy. There's no stamp, I don't recognize it, it's not the same, there's no tviyas, right? There are ways we're lenient because if you recognize it, then it looks like the same thing, then there's no reason for you to suspect somebody replaced it with something. But whenever there's a chance that it could have been replaced, it's also me'ikar adin, at least, the Chacham tell us. Basar shenisalam is a problem, unless the circumstances are such that the likelihood is that this is the same one. Okay. There are various scenarios where we don't have to be choishes. But in essence, in principle, Basar shenisalam is also an isur d'Rabbanan. And there's a chash isur min Torah here. What's a chash? Maybe this is real treif. If they were right that this will replace, then it's a real isur Torah. Anyway, here it's easier. It's not like cheese, the Shach says, because here the gzera of Basar shenisalam min is only a chumrah. It's only a chumrah that they were machmir. Hey, you have to be suspicious. You have to be concerned. It was replaced. Since it was only a chumrah the sheichmiru chachomim, and there's some Amoraim who even say that it's not a problem at all. We're not makbid on Basar shenisalam min, then therefore you can be mitzaref this suffix if you have a suffix on it to a Sfeka, because it's one of those lenient types of Sfekas d'Rabbanan, or Isur d'Rabbanan, which does not make the Isur an Isur vadai.
Wouldn't you automatically have was replaced, that it was replaced with something that was treif?
No. What we're saying, we're making one assumption. If it was replaced, then it was replaced with Isur.
Why are we?
What?
Why isn't it a suffix with what it was?
No, we see meat. We see meat over here.
No, but it was something. If it was replaced, then it was replaced with something. You don't know that.
No, but we only have one suffix, right? Was it replaced or not? Is it the same meat or not? It's really one suffix. It's meat. Was it replaced with basar treifa meat, or was it not replaced? Is it the original meat? It's only one suffix that got with this meat. Is this kosher or is this treif? Is this the original meat that I bought, or is this something other than what I bought? It looks very similar. I don't know for sure.
Right, but why don't we say it was replaced? There's a suffix as to whether it was replaced.
Oh, you're saying if it was replaced at all?
Yeah, it wasn't replaced at all.
Yeah.
And then, if it was replaced, how do we know it was replaced?
Yeah, well, that's the gzera here. That's the whole idea of the gzera. The gzera is that we are assuming, or we are suspecting, that it was replaced by something that is no good. That's what he said. It's a chumrah. You're right.
But it's a big assumption.
You're right. Exactly. That's why he says the reason why it's an easy form of suffix is because it's a chumrah. But you presented it very nice. I mean, in reality, you could claim, Sfeka over here too, in the etzem question here. What meat is this? But that was what they were concerned about. Apparently, these things have happened. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made this chumrah. Meat was replaced, a crow or raven, whatever comes. People don't check. People don't really pay attention. If these things can happen, then obviously they were machmir. So this chumrah, which is halacha l'maaseh chumrah, in some cases, nevertheless, because it's only a chumrah, we can be mitzarefet to Sfeka. And therefore, a suffix legabe this would also be a kula. Because it in itself is a suffix. Think about it. Basar shenisalam min it in itself is a suffix. But the Chachamim say it's asur. But this isur is a chumrah. And because it's only a chumrah, it's an easy form of isur d'Rabbanan, therefore not a real isur vadai. Therefore, since it's not an isur vadai, I can be mitzarefet to a Sfeka. Okay, we'll stop over here.